The night sky above the battlefield burned with colors that did not belong to Earth. Purple flames spread across the horizon, and broken ships rained down from orbit. The sound of war echoed through every mountain and valley, shaking the ground. Beneath the boots of soldiers. No one expected the war to come this way, and no one expected it to arrive so suddenly. The human fleet had entered this part of the galaxy only weeks ago, and already it felt like the galaxy wanted to destroy them. Captain Elias stood on the black soil, his chest heaving. The suit around him was cracked, sparks jumping across his armor. His hand shook as he gripped his weapon tighter. Around him, the world was chaos, fire, ash, and the smell of things that had never been burned before. Yet what froze him in place was not the enemy, not the alien ships above, not even the lightning that cracked the sky. It was the memory of his friend. Only minutes ago, Commander Rylan had stood beside him. Rylan with his steady laugh and fearless courage, the kind of man who believed no fight was ever hopeless. Together, they had led the human forces into unknown space. They had promised each other that they would live through this war, no matter how bad it became. But the promise shattered in an instant. The enemy came in waves, dark figures with glowing eyes, their weapons humming with strange energy. The humans fought back with everything they had, but the enemy was faster, stronger, and merciless. When the soldiers began to fall, Rylan had been the one who stood his ground first. He had shouted for Elias to keep moving, to save the others, to carry the mission forward. Elias had obeyed, though every step felt like betrayal. Then it happened. A beam of light, sharp as lightning, cut through the air and struck Rylan. Elias turned just in time to see his friend fall, his body collapsing like a broken shadow on the ground. The world seemed to stop in that single moment. The battlefield, the screams, the fire, it all faded into silence. The only thing Elias saw was his friend lying there, unmoving, gone. Now, the memory haunted him as he ran through the burning valley. His men were scattered, his weapons nearly drained, and his heart crushed under the weight of what he had seen. He wanted to scream, but his throat was dry with smoke and sorrow. Every step forward felt like carrying the dead weight of his friends. Memory on his shoulders, but there was no time to stop. The enemy was everywhere, and the humans were fighting for survival. Elias forced himself to move, each step fueled by anger, grief, and a small fire of determination that refused to die. If he fell here, then Rylan's death would mean nothing. If he lived, if he fought, then maybe his friend's sacrifice could still mean something. The ground trembled again as another alien ship fell from the sky, slamming into the mountainside. Shards of glowing rock scattered across the field, lighting the battlefield with an eerie blue glow. Elias stumbled but kept going. He reached a ridge and looked down. Below, the last of the human forces were gathering, bloodied and broken, but still holding the line. They were outnumbered. They were surrounded. And yet, Elias saw in their eyes the same fire he had seen in Rylan's, a refusal to give in, a refusal to surrender. Something stirred in him then. A memory not only of his friend's death, but of his friend's life. The courage, the belief, the will to stand no matter the odds. Elias raised his weapon and shouted across the battlefield. His voice cut through the storm, through the chaos, through the fear. His men turned to him, their eyes locking onto his. For a brief moment, they forgot their wounds, their fear, their exhaustion. For a brief moment, they believed again. The war was not over. Not yet. Humanity would not die here. Elias felt his friend's memory burning inside him like a second heart. And as the enemy surged forward once again, he knew this was only the beginning. The war was unexpected. The loss was unbearable. But the memory of his friend would shape him, and through him, shape all of humanity. The storm above roared, lightning splitting the sky wide open. The alien ships circled like predators waiting for the final kill. Elias gripped his weapon, his eyes burning with fire. For Rylan, for humanity, for the future. He would not fall. The battle was far from over. The storm above grew worse as the battlefield stretched into chaos. The sky rumbled with strange thunder, not just from nature but from alien machines that tore the air apart. Bolts of purple fire rained down on the ground, carving craters where soldiers had once stood. Captain Elias slid down the ridge, landing beside the last group of survivors. They were a mix of exhausted Marines, engineers, and medics, faces pale. Armor cracked, weapons nearly empty. Some were bleeding, others shaking, but all of them looked at him with hollow eyes. "Captain," one soldier whispered, barely able to stand. "We can't hold them, they're too many." Elias looked past him. Across the blackened valley, alien figures moved like shadows, their glowing eyes piercing the storm. They walked slowly, deliberately, knowing the humans had nowhere left to run. Their ships circled above, ready to finish the fight. But Elias's gaze did not stay on the enemy. His eyes lingered on his men. They were broken, yet alive. They needed something more than orders. They needed hope. He thought of Rylan again, of the smile his friend wore even in the darkest hours. Rylan had always believed people could do more than they thought possible. Elias raised his voice. "Listen to me, we are not finished. Not while we still breathe, not while we stand together. If we fall here, humanity falls with us. If we fight, we carry our people's future with us. That is what they fear. That is why they fight so hard. To break us." The words seemed to spark something in the survivors. Shoulders straightened, eyes brightened. Weapons were lifted once again, even if they were nearly useless. The line was broken, but it was not gone. Suddenly, the ground shook. An alien walker, a massive machine with 4 jagged legs and a glowing cannon, emerged from the smoke. Its footsteps cracked the earth, and its cannon lit up with a deadly hum. Soldiers ducked in fear, some whispering prayers. Elias felt the weight of the moment press against his chest. If this machine fired, the last of his men would be gone. He could not let that happen. Without hesitation, he ran forward. His boots splashed in the mud as lightning cracked above him. He aimed his rifle, knowing it would not pierce the armor, but fired anyway. The shot sparked harmlessly off the walker's shell. Still, Elias kept firing, shouting to draw its attention. The cannon rotated toward him, glowing brighter with lethal energy. He braced himself, his mind flashing with the image of Rylan. Then, out of the smoke, something unexpected happened. A hidden human heavy gunner, thought to be dead, rose from behind broken rubble. He dragged a portable rail launcher, the kind of weapon that took every ounce of strength to fire. His voice was hoarse, but his aim was steady. For humanity. He screamed and pulled the trigger. The rail slug shot out with a thunderous crack. It pierced the walker's glowing cannon, just as it prepared to fire. The explosion lit the valley, ripping the machine apart in a shower of sparks and molten shards. The ground shook again, but this time with victory. The survivors roared, their voices echoing across the battlefield. For the first time in hours, they had destroyed one of the enemy's monsters. Elias turned to the heavy gunner, but the man collapsed, the weapon falling from his hands. He was gone, burned out by the effort. Another memory, another death. Elias clenched his fists. He wanted to mourn, but the battle did not give him time. The enemy was regrouping. More shadows advanced, their eyes glowing brighter in the storm. The humans had won a moment, nothing more. He pulled his soldiers into formation, their broken line now tighter than before. "You saw it," Elias shouted. "They can be beaten. They are not gods. They bleed. They fall. Remember this. Every one of you remember this." The soldiers' voices rose again. They lifted their weapons, broken as they were, and stood shoulder to shoulder. Lightning split the sky once more, striking the mountains and lighting up their faces. For a moment, Elias thought he saw Ryland's spirit standing among them, proud. Unbroken, the enemy began their march again. The air filled with the hum of alien weapons. The storm above screamed with thunder. Elias whispered to himself, "Ryland, I will not let your death be wasted. Your memory will shape us. It will shape humanity." And with that, he lifted his weapon and charged forward, leading his men into the fire. The broken line did not break again. The battlefield smelled of smoke and iron. The storm raged, tearing the sky with streaks of blue and white fire. Human soldiers stood in the mud, their armor dented, their weapons shaking in tired hands, but they stood. Captain Elias had seen them break before, but not this time. Not after the walkers' destruction. Not after they had tasted victory, no matter how small. The alien forces moved differently now. No longer rushing forward in endless waves, they slowed. Their glowing eyes fixed on the humans as if studying them, as if surprised that so few had survived this long. Then, the enemy changed tactics. From the fog, tall figures appeared, commanders of the alien host. Their armor shone with black metal, etched with symbols that pulsed with violet light. They carried staffs that crackled with power, weapons beyond human science. The ground seemed to bend around them as they approached. The human survivors felt the weight of fear pressing against their hearts. Some whispered, others clenched their teeth. Elias saw it in their eyes, the return of doubt, the creeping shadow of despair. He could not let it consume them. They bleed like the rest, Elias shouted, pointing his rifle toward the towering figures. Their power means nothing if we stand together. Remember what we've already survived. Remember Ryland. Remember every name we carry. At his words, the line steadied again. Soldiers aimed their rifles, even knowing the odds. They had no choice. They had nowhere else to stand. The first alien commander raised its staff. A beam of energy erupted, slicing through the ground and throwing men into the air. The line staggered, but Elias was already moving. He dashed forward, sliding across the mud, and fired into the commander's chest. The bullet sparked harmlessly against the armor. The alien turned toward him, its glowing eyes narrowing. Elias felt its gaze pierce into his soul, heavy and cold, like the weight of space itself. For a moment, he could not move. His body shook, his vision blurred, but then he heard another voice in his head. Ryland's voice. "Don't stop, Elias, don't ever stop." The fog lifted from his mind. With a roar, Elias hurled a grenade at the alien commander's feet. The explosion ripped through the air, throwing sparks and shards in every direction. The commander staggered, its armor cracked. The soldiers saw it and shouted, firing their rifles with renewed fury. The alien fell, crashing into the mud with a sound like thunder. The humans cheered, but the celebration died quickly. More commanders stepped from the fog, 3, then 5. Then more, each glowing brighter than the last. The ground seemed to shake beneath their presence. Elias clenched his jaw. They could not defeat them all in open combat. They needed something else, something desperate. His mind raced. He remembered the reports of old alien ruins buried beneath this valley, structures that had once resisted even the invaders' weapons. If they could reach them, maybe they could hold out. Maybe they could survive. He turned to his men. "We fall back to the ruins," he ordered. "Every step we take, we fight, but we do not stop until we reach shelter." "Move," the soldiers obeyed, retreating in tight formation, covering each other with bursts of fire. The alien commanders followed slowly, their staff sending bolts of energy across the field. Each strike took more lives, but still the humans moved, step by step. Inch by inch, the ruins appeared through the mist towers of black stone jutting from the earth, glowing faintly with strange patterns. They looked ancient, older than the war, older than both species. The humans rushed inside, dragging the wounded, setting up defenses where they could. The walls of the ruins hummed with energy, as if alive. For the first time since the battle began, the alien commanders hesitated. They stopped at the edges of the ruins, their glowing eyes watching but not entering. The soldiers noticed. There. Not coming in, when whispered. Elias studied the commanders carefully. Their hesitation was not fear, it was respect. The ruins meant something to them. Something powerful. And if that was true, then humanity had just found its first advantage in the war. The storm roared above, lightning flashing across the broken sky. The battlefield was quiet now, but it was not peace. It was the silence before another storm. Elias leaned against the wall, his chest heavy with grief and exhaustion. His thoughts returned to Rylan again. His friend had died only hours ago, but his memory guided every decision Elias made. And now, standing inside a place even the enemy feared, he felt that Rylan's death was not meaningless. It was shaping him. It was shaping the path forward. The soldiers gathered around fires lit from broken equipment. They whispered to each other, voices filled with fear but also with something else, hope. The ruins seemed to shield them not only from the enemy, but from despair. Elias looked at them and thought of the bigger picture. If humanity could survive here, if they could learn what these ruins were, then maybe they could turn the war around. Maybe they could rise not just as survivors, but as something greater. He lifted his head, eyes burning. This is not the end, he said softly, more to himself than to his men. This is where it begins. The lightning struck again, lighting up the ruins with electric fire. Outside, the alien commanders stood like statues waiting. Inside, the humans prepared, holding onto the only thing they had left: memory, courage, and the will to fight. And for Elias, one truth grew stronger than ever. His friend's death was not only a memory. It was becoming the foundation of something larger, something that could shape the fate of all humanity. The air inside the ruins was different. It hummed with a low vibration, like the sound of a hidden heart beating beneath the stone. Every step echoed as if the walls themselves were listening. The soldiers set down the wounded, patched broken armor, and prepared for the next wave. But their eyes kept drifting to the walls, to the strange glowing marks that pulsed with faint blue light. Captain Elias walked deeper into the ruins, his rifle raised, every sense sharp. The architecture was not human. The stones were smooth, perfectly cut, fitted together without cracks. Some walls curved upward into spirals that seemed to touch the ceiling, while others formed arches filled with flickering energy. He felt small inside this place, as if standing in the presence of something far older and far greater than himself. "Sir," one of the engineers whispered, pointing at the glowing symbols. "These markings, they're reacting to us. The closer we stand, the brighter they get." Elias touched the wall with his gloved hand. The stone was cold, yet alive with energy. For a moment, he felt a rush in his chest, a memory, not his own. A flash of a world lit by two suns, cities made of crystal, and beings that were not human or alien but something else entirely. Then it was gone, leaving him shaken. He pulled his hand back quickly. "These ruins. They remember," he muttered. The soldiers looked at each other uneasily. Memories were a heavy weight already, and now the ruins themselves carried their own. Outside, the alien commanders still waited, their glowing eyes fixed on the ruins. They paced but did not cross the threshold. It was clear now they feared this place. Not because it was empty, but because it was not. The medics worked silently, wrapping wounds, whispering comfort to the dying. The soldiers cleaned their weapons even though the power cells were almost dry. Every man and woman knew what was coming. The enemy would not wait forever. Elias stood at the center of the chamber, staring at the strange spirals that climbed the walls. He thought again of Rylan, of the way his friend always believed there was more to life than fighting. Rylan would have loved this place. He would have tried to understand it, not just survive in it. But Rylan was gone. And now Elias had to carry both their weight, survival and discovery. Suddenly, the ruins shook. A low hum grew louder, filling the chamber. The symbols flared with bright light, casting long shadows across the walls. Soldiers raised their weapons, expecting an attack, but no enemy entered. Instead, a great doorway opened at the far end of the hall, its edges glowing white. The soldiers gasped. The doorway led into a tunnel that descended into darkness, lit only by flickering blue veins in the stone. Elias hesitated. Entering meant walking into the unknown, maybe into a trap. But staying meant certain death when the aliens outside decided to strike again. He tightened his grip on his weapon. "We move," he ordered. "Stay close. No one falls behind." The survivors gathered, wounded carried on makeshift stretchers, and followed Elias into the glowing tunnel. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became, until it felt like the entire ruin was alive around them. Finally, they entered a vast chamber. At its center stood a towering structure, shaped like an obelisk, carved from black stone and covered in glowing patterns. It pulsed with slow, steady light, like a heartbeat. The engineer stared in awe. "It's a memory core. Sir, I think this is ancient technology, maybe older than both our species. It's storing something, knowledge, history, maybe weapons." Elias stepped closer, his breath heavy. The obelisk's glow reflected in his visor, filling his vision with swirling images. Wars fought on worlds he had never seen. Civilizations rising and falling, heroes remembered and forgotten. It was a library of memories, written not in words, but in images and emotions. And then, just for a moment, he saw something that froze him. He saw humans. Not as they were now, but long ago, primitive, fragile. Yet even then, they stood defiant against impossible odds. The obelisk had recorded humanity before humanity even knew it was being watched. The realization hit him like a storm. This ruin wasn't just alien, it was a witness to everything. And now, it was showing him why humanity had survived for so long. Suddenly, the chamber shook again. This time it was not the ruins themselves but the enemy outside. Explosions rocked the entrance, stones collapsing as the alien commanders forced their way in. The soldiers raised their weapons, preparing for the last stand. Elias stood before the obelisk, his hand resting on its cold surface. He felt the memory of Rylan inside him, the courage his friend had carried, the belief that humanity could endure anything. And now the obelisk seemed to echo that belief, amplifying it, burning it into his soul. He turned to his soldiers. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for what humanity is, for what we've always been. And this place, this memory, it will shape not just us, but the future." The soldiers stood taller, their fear fading in the glow of the obelisk. The alien commanders burst through the entrance, their staffs glowing with deadly energy. The ruins trembled as two forces prepared to clash within its sacred walls. And Elias, his friend's death burning in his heart, lifted his weapon and roared, "For humanity!" The chamber erupted in fire, light, and war. The ruins shook as the alien commanders stormed inside. Their staffs glowed with searing violet light, casting sharp shadows across the ancient walls. Each step they took echoed like thunder, and the air grew heavy, as if the chamber itself feared their presence. The human soldiers tightened their line around the wounded and the obelisk. Armor cracked, weapons sputtering, but no one moved back. Captain Elias stood in the center, his eyes burning, his heart pounding with the weight of Rylan's memory. The first alien commander raised its staff. A bolt of energy ripped across the room, striking the floor and blasting shards of stone into the air. The humans staggered, but Elias shouted, "Hold! The ruins protect us, stand your ground." The soldiers returned fire. Blue flashes from human rifles cut through the chamber, striking against the alien armor. Most shots sparked harmlessly, but a few found cracks. One alien commander staggered, black smoke rising from its chestplate. The humans roared in desperate triumph. Even as the others advanced, the obelisk pulsed brighter now, as if awakened by the battle. The glowing symbols along its surface began to swirl, shifting into new patterns. The humming grew louder, vibrating through the soldiers' bones. "Sir," the engineer yelled. "The obelisk is reacting to us, to the fight." Elias understood. It wasn't just a memory, it was alive in some way, responding to will, to courage, to survival. He pressed his hand against the cold stone once more. Instantly, visions filled his mind, humans across history, standing in hopeless battles, refusing to bow, refusing to surrender. Each image burned into him like fire, and then the visions shifted. He saw Rylan, not just the memory of his death, but of his life, his laughter, his courage, the way he had stood in front of Elias to take the strike that killed him. The obelisk had taken that memory and turned it into strength. When Elias pulled his hand away, his veins seemed to hum with the same energy. He turned back to his men, his voice stronger than ever. "They can kill us, but they can never erase what we are. Humanity's memory is stronger than their power. Stand with me." The soldiers roared again, their broken voices filling the chamber. The alien commanders struck, their staffs slashing beams of violet fire, but the humans met them head-on. Every shot, every grenade, every scream of defiance shook the chamber. One alien commander lunged at Elias, its staff cutting through the air. He rolled aside, firing point-blank into its chest. Sparks erupted, but the creature swung again, smashing him against the wall. His armor cracked, pain searing his ribs, but he did not fall. He saw Rylan again in his mind, standing tall. Elias pushed himself up, grabbed a fallen blade from the floor, and drove it into the alien's neck. The commander screeched, violet, light flickering in its eyes before it collapsed into the mud. The humans cheered, but the fight was far from over. Two more commanders pressed forward, their staffs weaving arcs of deadly light. Soldiers fell screaming, but the line did not break. Then, the obelisk flared so brightly the chamber became white with light. A shockwave burst outward, hurling both humans and aliens to the ground. The alien commanders staggered, their armor cracking under the force. The humans shielded their eyes, but the light did not harm them, it wrapped around them like a shield. The engineer gasped. "It's protecting us. The obelisk is protecting us." Elias rose to his feet, his heart racing. For the first time since the war began, humanity had something the enemy feared. Something that turned the fight, pushed them back. Elias shouted, his voice like thunder. The soldiers surged forward, firing and striking with every ounce of strength left in them. The obelisk pulsed with their courage, each beat brighter, each hum stronger. The alien commanders staggered under the combined assault. One fell to rifle fire, another to a grenade that tore its staff apart. The last commander hissed, its glowing eyes burning with hatred. It slammed its staff into the ground, sending a wave of energy that shattered the floor. Soldiers were thrown aside, Elias nearly crushed beneath falling stone. But he forced himself to stand, weapon raised. The alien's staff glowed brighter, preparing one final strike that would destroy them all. Elias looked at his soldiers, broken but unyielding. He looked at the obelisk, pulsing with the weight of memory, and then he whispered, "Rylan, guide me." With a roar, Elias charged. His rifle fired until it clicked empty, then he swung it like a club. The alien struck back, but the obelisk pulsed again, sending another wave of light through Elias. His movements grew faster, stronger, fueled by more than flesh. Fueled by memory, he leapt forward, drove the broken rifle into the alien's chest, and shoved with all his strength. The alien commander screeched, its body trembling with violet sparks. Then it collapsed, its staff clattering to the stone floor. The chamber fell silent except for the storm above. The humans stood, panting, wounded, but alive. Around them lay the broken bodies of the alien commanders. For the first time, they had stood against the enemy's leaders and won. The obelisk pulsed once more, softer now, as if satisfied. Elias sank to his knees, his chest heaving. His armor was broken, his body battered. But his spirit burned brighter than ever. He whispered again, "Rylan, we're still here, because of you." The survivors gathered around him, their faces marked by blood and exhaustion, but also something else. Hope. They had found something worth fighting for. Something the enemy feared. And though the storm raged above, they knew the true battle was only beginning. The storm outside had not ended, but inside the ruins, silence fell. The alien commanders lay broken, their glowing staffs shattered across the stone floor. Human soldiers leaned against the walls, too weak to cheer, too tired to even speak. Yet their eyes glowed with something the enemy could not erase. Hope. Captain Elias stood before the obelisk, his body bruised and bleeding, but his spirit unshaken. The black stone pulsed gently now, like a calm heartbeat. Every time it lit, he felt a whisper in his chest, a reminder of all that had been lost and all that still remained. He closed his eyes and saw Rylan again. His friend's face was clear, his voice strong, his last smile defiant even in death. That memory cut him deeper than any wound, yet it also lifted him higher than any victory. Raylan's death was not just sorrow, it had become the spark that carried them. Through this night, the soldiers began tending to the wounded, patching armor with scraps, reloading what little ammunition remained. They had won here, but outside, more enemy forces waited. The storm of war was far from finished. The engineer approached Elias, his face pale but his eyes alive with discovery. "Sir, this obelisk, it's more than a weapon. It's a record, a library of everything that came before. It remembers courage. It remembers sacrifice. It remembers defiance. And now, it remembers us." Elias touched the stone again. Images rushed into his mind, countless battles, countless voices, civilizations rising and falling like waves. But among them all, humanity's memory now burned brightest. Not because humans were the strongest, but because they refused to yield. He felt the weight of history pressing on his shoulders. Humanity was not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to become part of something eternal. The soldiers gathered around him, waiting. Elias turned and spoke, his voice steady despite the exhaustion. "We came here as explorers," he said. "We thought we were alone, fragile, small. But look around you, look at what we've done. We stood against their armies. We stood against their commanders. We survived because we remembered who we are, not machines, not beasts, humans. And our memory, our courage will shape everything that comes after us." The soldiers listened, their heads rising. Some wept quietly, not out of fear, but out of pride. Elias continued. "Raylan believed we could stand, even when the galaxy turned against us. He gave his life for that belief. And I tell you now, his death will not be forgotten. His memory will not fade. It will live in me. It will live in you. It will live in humanity." As if answering his words, the obelisk pulsed brighter, its glow filling the chamber with blue fire. The ancient walls echoed with a deep hum, almost like a voice. The soldiers gasped, their faces bathed in light. For a moment, they felt connected not just to each other, but to every battle humanity had ever fought, every sacrifice, every act of defiance. Outside, alien ships circled, their lights cutting through the storm. But none dared to approach the ruins again. The enemy had seen what the humans carried inside them. They had seen the obelisk recognize them. And they feared what humanity might become. The storm raged on, but inside the ruins, something greater had begun. The survivors would return home, carrying more than scars. They carried proof that humanity mattered, proof that their struggle was not meaningless. And when they told the story of this night, of this battle, of this memory, it would spread across every colony, every ship, every heart. Elias looked once more at the obelisk. The light softened, fading into a slow rhythm. As if resting, he whispered softly, so only he and the stone could hear, "Rylan, you didn't just die. You changed us. Your memory will guide us forever." He turned back to his soldiers, raising his broken rifle high. His voice thundered across the ruins, echoing into the storm. "This is not the end of humanity. This is our beginning." The soldiers roared with him, their voices carrying into the night, defiant against the storm dot, and in that moment, standing in the ruins of an ancient memory, Captain Elias knew the truth. His friend's death was not only his burden, it was the foundation of a new destiny. Humanity would rise, not because it was the strongest, but because it remembered, because memory was power, because sacrifice was eternal, because no enemy could ever erase what it meant to be human. The storm thundered once more, but the humans did not fear it. They were already shaping tomorrow.